98.75 The Game.
Please say that, what you just said, off the air to start hour number 3.
Bump today. What we got?
Chapman's on the. He's going to throw the pill.
See, that's slang.
You can't do that. You
I
can't show up today doing that because I told Tim last week what this segment's really like.
Yeah.
You bring Trey and Tim brings me, and it's like a play date with the two little kids. And we go over to the playground, and the adults sit over on the bench and drink their coffee and watch what's going on and make sure that by the end of it, I'm not pulling Trey's hair and he's not biting my wrist or something. And that's basically how this segment normally goes. But you didn't bring your child today.
Yeah, so I have to take over for a little bit of Trey, and that's what you get.
Boy, did this segment get so much better today. Trey Dyson apparently doesn't understand as the season goes on, things get more important. And people pay more attention to baseball. And now, more than ever, final regular season series tonight.
It's going to be big. I mean, this is a great series. It's interesting because what y'all were speaking of earlier is how, we get rained out, maybe.
They did call that quick, didn't they? Like,
yeah.
We were laughing. Like, my son had soccer practice at 6. All right, 4 and 5-year-old soccer practice at 6. They didn't call that till 5:30. That baseball game was called at 2:16.
Man, they're doing the rain dance out there. Let me tell you something. There was strategy behind.
It was probably a grounds crew person like sprinkling, between first and second. Kingston walked out and got hit. Was like, oh, that's it. We're done. All right.
Can't get hurt playing.
By the way, this is Gamecock baseball great Bryon Jeffcoat in the All-South Federal Credit Union studios with us. Trey Dyson normally joins us as well, but Trey actually is doing real work today. How about that? Bryon is pleased. Part of the Jeffcoat and Jeffcoat team. That's good news for you professionally. We'll miss out on a little entertainment. I can only imagine the gas baggy hot take he'd give us on the Frank's Discount Tire poll question this morning about biggest sports fashion statement: mustache, beard, tattoo, or hairstyle. Where do you weigh in on this, Bryon, to begin, but before we get right back into Gamecock baseball?
I'm a mustache. Yeah, I think the mustache has always been a funny, especially baseball. The guys get on a little streak. Next thing you know, they start growing mustaches.
Mm-hmm. Who do you equate to that in your head personally? Any Gamecocks back in your day doing that?
We did. I don't know if any one particular guy had a mustache.
Mm-hmm. It wasn't quite the ironic thing that it is now. It was too close to the early 90s and the late 80s, I think, where it was a serious deal. Like Mike Schmidt he's a legit mustache guy growing up, and he was one of the best baseball players in my era growing up, I feel like.
Right.
Philadelphia Phillies third baseman. So it wasn't quite what it is now. It's kind of an inside joke, I feel like, what Adam Hill was talking about yesterday. It's like, yeah, the stash helps me throw.
Right.
It's good.
Sure. But it was funny because when I was here at university, Coach Tanner, if you just had any bit of hair, he's like, what's wrong with your razor? And you're like, I'll be right back. So you run in, and you're shaving, you're bleeding, you're walking out, and it was part of it. You just didn't grow facial hair. And maybe you could have got away with the mustache. It was like that was the one thing from a facial hair you could get away with, but if you start growing that beard out, it was like, no, that ain't working. But now it's like, man, the longer the beard, the better. And it's just become more of a trend even in our society.
But I think Ray Tanner even evolved his attitude towards that. And I know it's trivial, it's a small part of things, but I think that is part of his evolution as a coach. He became more relaxed. I think he had a conversation with Adam Everett specifically after Everett had been in the big leagues a long time, and he came to the conclusion that the strict disciplinarian style that he kind of inherited or was ingrained in him might not be the best for results, and clearly at the end of his coaching career, he got the best results. And I think he credited some of that to probably guys like Trey Dyson who helped him loosen up a little bit. And Michael Roth was obviously kind of that guy towards the end of the tenure, and Scott Wingo. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, the facial hair was part of that. It's kind of odd.
Yeah, I don't think he still likes that stuff. It's just him, right? That's his style. And even though he would let some of that happen, he still maintained that respect that you gave him or that he that he brought on. And so, but yeah, I think it's some of that you got to blend a little bit and have some balance and let guys be, sometimes who they are.
Now, as you were going through the minors, You remember, as you were going through the minor, was there one guy or two guys? I mean, that, like I said, I feel like the facial hair in baseball has really evolved of late.
Well, the Red Sox kind of really got it going.
Yeah.
The idiots back in the day when they won the World Series for the first time, then Johnny Damon, and Kevin Youkilis, sure, those guys that really kind of got outside the box with it, took it to the next level.
Yeah, minor leagues was just all over the place. You know, some guys never shaved. Pitchers were always worried that on their start that they shaved, did they not shave, those kind of things. So, it was just one of those things that maybe if you were if you could grow the beard or you could have it. You know, I was always the guy that I had to shave every day. I still do, you know. And it's just, if I don't, I can have a beard pretty quick, you know. And so anyway, I think that was a lot of the minor league guys. Again, you got it all over the place. But, you know, if you came from a program like Carolina, you always still in your head, you're like, it's getting a little bad. I better go ahead and shave today.
It makes sense that was ingrained in you via Ray Tanner back in the day. Last time you were in studio with us, last Thursday, we're talking about a very disappointing Wednesday night for the Gamecocks. One hit shutout, 9-0 against Chad Holbrook, College of Charleston. Carolina bounces back, even though they lose the series opener against Missouri. They win on Saturday with a big performance from Adam Hill, who has sparked this mustache conversation, by the way, and then get the huge walk-off home run for Carlos Cortez on Sunday to take 2 out of 3, win their 4th consecutive SEC series, kind of extend that streak and really solidify, I think, their NCAA tournament standing. How do you feel today versus how you felt last week? I know last week you gave us the classic baseball advice. You don't get too high, don't get too low based on a team off one game. Did last weekend just kind of solidify your feelings about this team moving forward?
I think last weekend was a really big weekend for the fact that, you know, Missouri isn't, you know, it's not Florida. They don't come in. And those are the teams that when they don't come in with that
name brand recognition,
then all of a sudden we don't play to our ability. And, you know, we drop the first game, which starts to worry. But then, you know, I've kind of liked as this rotation has shifted to Adam Hill, you have almost this confidence that if you drop Friday or Thursday, you got Adam Hill coming.
As opposed to early in the season, you feel like if Carolina didn't win on Friday night, good luck.
Yeah.
Right?
So isn't it a weird how your feeling of going into, if you drop the first game, then it's like we got the series because Adam's tomorrow, or we can get back in it.
Right.
If we win Friday, man, we got a great chance to win. You know, when Adam's on it, and then, you know, what we did, and obviously the pitching performance with
Cody Morris,
Cody Morris, and their guy Kent Sisk or something to that. It was incredible. I mean,
Sisk was the Charleston guy. Plasmeyer, I think, was the Missouri guy on Sunday that shut Carolina down, minus that one swing from Carlos Cortez.
Did we have 4 lefties in a row? I mean, did Missouri throw 3 starters, and then Charleston?
Right.
College of Charleston had a lefty as well. So we're ready for our lefties, I guess. But yeah, I mean, great weekend. Rare excited about heading into Texas A&M. I know the guys. That's probably a great place. I never got to go there. They weren't in the SEC when I was here, so I imagine that's a great atmosphere. And I look for them to, you know, the thing that's going to be interesting is, again, we go back to this whole RPI and how this works and the metrics. Is that if they get swept, their RPI actually increases.
Right.
You know, obviously we don't want that to happen, but I think yesterday you were breaking it down. It was like worst case scenario, best case scenario, and I think I put them in obviously a postseason right now, regardless of what happens. But I think we can really turn some heads, kind of figure out where we're going if we make a nice run and continue that streak. So.
I think that's the definition of playing with house money, and that's where a lot of people see Gamecock baseball this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I want to go back. I mean, we talk about Cody Morris. That was the guy that I highlighted at the beginning of the year, and certainly the way he's been able to throw. 6-3 is his record, 4.22 ERA so far this season. He actually leads the team, or is tied with Logan Chapman. He leads the team in starts. Adam Hill missing that one start because of tendonitis. But you go back to that performance on Saturday and
Sunday. You're talking about.
Excuse me, Sunday, and you'd gotten a phone call. I think it was last week, and the same thing. I think you feel comfortable with Logan Chapman, with Hill and Morris. But as you talk about the postseason play, you got the phone call last week saying, what about the midweek starter?
That was a tweet in from Tammy.
Okay, who can step up as the 4th or 5th guy in case you get into that deep into a regional? and you've got to go into your bullpen and run somebody out there in game 4 or 5. It's going to be kind of interesting. But I think what y'all were just saying, now when you get to the weekend with Hill and with Morris coming down the line, you still really like your chances to come back in the series, and that's what we saw last weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could see in the postseason as it gets further on, and if we need a guy, I think a guy like a TJ Shook would be a guy that can make a great spot start for you and maybe go the distance, as you need those kind of guys. But all of our guys have I feel like our pitching is, we had some series there where our starters weren't doing it, but our bullpen was keeping everything in check for us. And so I really think things have lined up well for us. We got a lot of guys who are experienced. I don't see some of these guys stepping in being too overwhelmed for the moment. And I think it'd be different. Maybe it'd be different if you come into it and we've got everything to play for, nothing to lose, versus hey, all of a sudden we're the team and you drop 2 again and then we're in trouble,
Right.
So.
And Trey talked about it last week, how he feels like this team plays better from the underdog perspective. Yep. You might have even gotten that a little bit last weekend. Once you lose the series opener, you're kind of the underdog to win the series. And that's when Carolina played a little bit better. We might be overhyping that thing off of one swing from Carlos Cortez on Sunday, but guess what? That happened, and that gave Carolina the win. That has them winning their 4th straight SEC series.
You know what? You say that, but if the bases are loaded, I think it was Stokes gets the hit against Mississippi in the 10th, and they win that game,
sweep them.
We're overhyping a sweep against the top 5 team in the country, and all of a sudden it's you talk about a completely different mindset. So I don't know if you can base it on, like you said, one swing of the bat. The team is just playing better. Mm-hmm. And we've talked about this. I know that it goes back to that LSU series. You think about where we were going into the LSU series.
That's coming off the Presbyterian loss.
It's coming off the Presbyterian loss. It's going into alumni weekend, and you and Trey sat in here, and as people who can truly say we, you guys were frustrated. You were with your program, rightfully so. And it was you were going to, and since that weekend, and I don't know if you've seen a difference. You said you spoke to you didn't say. We know you spoke to the team. You spoke to the team at the beginning of the season. You went to a lot of games. I don't know what difference Bryon Jeffcoat sees in the team from the beginning to the middle, now to the end.
We'll get that evolution as we roll on this morning.
Tease.
Also wanted to update TJ Hopkins and his availability for the weekend coming off a back issue. Mark Kingston did that yesterday. You can hear from him as we roll on this morning. He's Bryon Jeffcoat, Gamecock baseball great in the All-South Federal Credit Union studios with us. You're listening to The Early Game. It's one of center fielder, leadoff man TJ Hopkins, who Mark Kingston refers to there, has been a huge difference maker for the Gamecocks in the lineup this year. And what I take away from that is you might see a pinch hit or two, maybe a pinch run, maybe plays a few. I wouldn't put it out. I wouldn't, if the over-under was, I'd say like 3.5 innings or something is where I would put TJ Hopkins, how much we see him this weekend at Texas A&M. What about you, Bryon?
Yeah, it seems to be that they're very precaution about putting anybody who's injured out there. I mean, maybe they're just – I'm a little different in just remembering back to if I was hurt. Obviously, I didn't want to cost the team anything, but, man, it was hard to get me off the field. Not to say that he's not hurt, but I think they're a lot more precaution, take those steps to say, hey, so, yeah, we might get a pinch hit here and there. He's been a catalyst. He's been one of them, is why we've seen a lot of success in this run that we're on. I think he's played great defense, and I think obviously his establishing that leadoff hitter is a big deal, and I think he's obviously done a lot of good things in that role. And he's just he's a great athlete. He brings a lot to the table for us, and stolen bags and things like that. So I'd love to have him back in the lineup, but maybe more important to keep him fresh to go when we get to the SC tournament or even in postseason.
Oh, what's the flight? 2.5 hours, 3 hours?
Yeah, right in there.
I mean, some of it may just be as simple as let's see how he handles flying.
Yeah, but I think Mark Kingston would have told us that. What I heard from his standpoint is like, yeah, we're going to take him because he's a big part of our team, but we're not expecting much out of him this weekend.
We'll find out. I think he needs to play. It'll be kind of fascinating to see how much playing time or how many innings he gets tonight, if he gets any, because I do agree with y'all. I mean, certainly it's not a coincidence that T.J. Hopkins returning has coincided with the bats becoming hot again or getting hot in the middle of the season. It's strange for me to say that because, Bryon, you being a player, it's strange to say, well, one guy can impact a lineup so much. I mean, I understood when a big a power hitter like a Mark McGwire or Barry Bonds or a guy in the middle of the lineup can change a game a little bit. But when you talk about a leadoff guy setting the table, it's fascinating to see how one guy like that can completely change the dynamics of your batting order.
You know, I think we said this back when the LSU series, Noah Campbell was in the leadoff role, and the first at bat, he takes gets the pitcher to throw a lot of pitches, and
right.
And that's part of being that leadoff. I remember starting a game, and if you're at home and the opposing team's up, they start the game, and that guy just puts a great at bat in. You're like, oh, here we go.
It's that sound, right?
It is.
I think is what more than anything. Like it's a big lull, a lot of lead up to the game, and then you got your ace out there, and ding, right off the bat, somebody sticks it to you.
I think there's,
all right,
I think there's
something.
I think there's some to the sound, but what you're saying is if you go up there and you don't take the first pitch, or you don't hit the first, but you go through a bat and it's 5 or 6 or 7 pitches, and you're up there working, and you're sitting in the outfield, you're out there in the field going, oh boy, all right, they're here to battle today, or they're here to.
Well, Ricky Henderson too, that went the opposite way. He liked to swing at that first pitch and
he'd
hit a home run,
right?
Yeah, exactly.
And you look at the College of Charleston game. That's what 2 pitches in. I haven't even sat down yet, and the guy, he hits a home run, and so that's sometimes. I think the game that they play, these leadoff hitters play in their head.
Right.
They're walking up to the plate. It's like, am I going to swing the first pitch? Am I not going to swing? Let's take it. And again, at the end of the day, you're looking for a quality at bat. So it sets the stage for really, how the next at bat's going to go for the most part, just how that inning is. Every time you start a game, you always hear the commentators are talking about, well, we want to. The opposing team wants to get his pitch count up,
right?
And so you're doing those things, and there's nothing worse than all of a sudden your starter's on the mound. It's Friday night, and he's got 13 pitches in on the first guy. It's like, oh, this isn't looking very good for us. So again, I think TJ's brought a lot of that to the table for us, and I think Noah Campbell will be a guy that will be the future for doing that as well.
I don't know if I see a lot of tools with Campbell for sure. He's had a lot of good moments, but it's just that consistency, and that might go along with confidence being his first year in baseball, in college baseball, and this year's team, maybe more than any other, certainly South Carolina team that I can remember, confidence plays such a huge part. We've seen them be as good as anyone in the country, hands down, and then we've seen them be as bad as almost anyone in the country as well. The one-hit shutout just a week or so ago.
They're streaky, and it's that inconsistent that we can't come in here and be like, oh, they're going to dominate this weekend, and and it doesn't turn out that way. And I think that's sometimes you kind of get a feel early on in the game how it's going to go with them. But I think they have a lot of pieces put together right now. I really like, a guy that doesn't probably always he definitely didn't get the talk of, the highlight coming into the year was a Justin Rowe and what that guy has done for himself. And, I just think, those are big pieces of it. Taylor behind the plate and what he's done, that was a big story. And so, again, those are parts of it. But before we left, Bill was kind of saying, Bryon, what do you think?
Right,
and how do we turn this thing around? And we sat here in this studio, and before the LSU series, and we had Secretary was announced to us. And that was the moment that I think the turnaround started to happen. That was
Preakness is this weekend, by the way.
Right.
Thank you.
So, we attribute everything to what Trey did in that moment. I think part of it was coaches were frustrated. I think they probably had some tough talks with the team. I think that the team that started to come and the nucleus of the guys together from a chemistry standpoint, that's what you look for right now is that, hey, we're getting this chemistry going, got some momentum, and we've seen teams take, LSU's always that team, especially when you get to the tournament. They can come in being the coldest team and then all of a sudden run and win the tournament. And, I'd love to see us do that. And not that we want to be cold coming in, but, we do a good take 2 out of 3. Would be my ideal my ideal situation this weekend. Take 2 out of 3. love to sweep them, but take 2 out of 3, go to the SEC tournament, win one at least, not 2 and out. Or if we go and
could be 1 and out if they don't get a top 4 seed in a bye in that double elimination portion. Yep. It's always odd how the SEC tournament works because through the years it has changed and different tournaments work differently. I think the ACC tournament has always done the round robin kind of deal, and they've finagled with it, and it just kind of shows you the significance or lack thereof of conference baseball tournaments at this time of the year. Coaches have to figure out, all right, how does this affect the regional pitching staff rotation, and should I throw this guy, and what should we do? A lot of that goes into it for sure. Interested in hearing more about the evolution of this year's team. We talked about expectations going in, and Claudia in our students section segment, I think, touched on it, talking about just getting to the postseason was going to be a mark of success in year number 1 for Mark Kingston. Interested in hearing more of your thoughts on that. Let you hear where he thinks his team stands right now as far as the NCAA tournament and possible even hosting an NCAA regional. We'll get to that next. He's Gamecock baseball great. Bryon Jeffcoat in the All-South Federal Credit Union studios with us here in hour number 3. This is the early game. It's 107.5 The Game. Responding to the question from the Big Spurs, John Whittle, yesterday with a lot of candor. Bryon, from a media nerd perspective, how I look at things, I've been really impressed with Mark Kingston and what he said publicly this year in some difficult situations, man. Those midweek losses, I think it's really easy for a coach to go in thinking just about his team and his players and explaining exactly what went wrong and making sure that fans are kind of giving his team the benefit of the doubt, but it comes off as making excuses. And Mark Kingston hasn't done that. And at the same time, he hasn't thrown his players under the bus and said, these guys just aren't good enough right now, and they weren't my guys anyway, and stuff has got to change, and let emotion take over that way either. I think he's done a really good job publicly balancing his comments, what would have been, as a former player and a guy who's followed the program a long time and knew how Ray Tanner did it, who was also a master at that kind of stuff. How have you perceived Mark Kingston here through year number 1?
Yeah, he's the ultimate professional. I mean, that's what I take from his post games interviews and how he articulates what's going on with the team, how he lets you in, but he doesn't let you fully in on what's going on. And like you said, he doesn't come out, and he's not one to make excuses. I think he tells you like it is where they are, but he's also one not to, paint this horrible picture like, oh, we're just terrible. And, he still wants that belief because he knows that, we need that. We need that around that. And the players, I think the players feed off of him and that confidence that he provides. And I like that about him. I think that was one thing probably that stood out with Coach Tanner in the interview process. What he saw in him was somebody who was, just pretty much the same guy every day. You're not going to have the highs and you're not going to have the lows. When I've been around him, the interesting thing about, what I've seen from Coach Kingston is he's very analytical. And I think he's a metrics guy. He has a lot of these things that we see that he's brought into the program with, and that's coming from, pro ball is bringing a lot of these measurements and things that we just, never thought about back in the day. But he's bringing that and trying to integrate that into the program. And that's him. And I think he's even made comments about the RPI is not his favorite thing because he breaks down that it's really not a true good measurement of who's the best. Mm-hmm. And I think he's got, with all the analytics that are out there, we can really pull from so many sources and so many numbers to find that. I was with, Drew Meyer was elected into the South Carolina Hall of Fame, and he did a great job. I was really proud of Drew and what he did in his speech, and Ray Allen was there, so that was cool as well.
How much of Drew's speech did you write?
None. No. He called. He said, he had. The sad thing was he had only like 3 minutes. Well, they gave him 6 and they backed it up to 3, and he was like 3 minutes, And but he did a great job, as I knew he would do.
How much did he end up taking?
How much did he
13?
take? I probably went 5.
Okay.
Strong. The thing about it is, they don't play around with that.
Right.
I mean, as soon as you're hitting the 3 or 4 minute mark, the music starts to play, and I was ready for who's the guy that would tackle you in the commercial? He'd just come out of nowhere.
Terry, the Office. I'll look it up. I'm on it.
Yeah. So
People are
anyway,
yelling at the
Terry
radios
Crews.
now.
Terry Crews, Office.
Well
I
done.
gotta
Was
see
that
what
the
it was.
intern? You going to give him credit in there? Was that Jen?
Jen.
Yeah,
well
intern.
done. Well done, intern Patrick. He's really coming up
So
clutch.
again, Drew did a great job, but I did have a chance before going in and caught up with Coach Tanner, and he's on the I can't remember the name of the committee, but
The NCAA tournament
yeah,
committee.
and he's involved in a lot of the ongoing conversations of looking at what teams are fit for the postseason, and
Right.
how do you once you get the top separated, it's easy. Here's your top teams, and then maybe it's even once it gets to that part where you're looking for the bubble team, like what separates a Conference USA team
Right.
that's in third place versus a 8th place SEC team.
Right. And I think that's going to be the difficult conversation when you're talking about the last few host sites, a Coastal Carolina versus a Duke, for instance.
Right.
How do you figure out who exactly earns that home regional hosting deal?
And what I was interested hearing what Coach Tanner said was it'll get so, fine tooth of where do you go when you start looking at stats like how many ejections did this team have? And it's really, and what are the injuries that are coming into it? I mean, all these factors when it's just too hard to really, you have to go find something, right?
Right.
And I think that's kind of where the difficult part. But I know he does a great job with staying involved, keeping up to date with what teams are doing what. So I think this is too also for me looking back where I was growing up. We didn't have the TV that we have today and all the exposure that college baseball is getting. If I'm a dad right now and, we get into the postseason and you're a Gamecock fan, sitting down with your kid watching these postseason games are some of the greatest things. And I didn't have that until it got to the College World Series. And when you heard that ping, and it just did something. And then you started hitting the backdrop stories of, when I was coming up, always seemed like Texas was always in there.
Sure.
And you'd hear these stories of these kids and what they did growing up and who they are. And then, man, there's just – and again, that was when bats were different and
Right.
balls were flying out of the park. It was really cool. So I would, if I'm a dad today, I'm sitting down and I'm sitting there watching it with my kids and saying, man, this is good baseball, right?
We'll see good baseball this weekend. I want to get your take on a couple things. South Carolina goes to Texas A&M. I don't know if you've ever watched a game, not been there, but ever watched a game there. They've got their ball 5, ball 6 chant that they'll do if a pitcher gets kind of hot. I want to the toughest place you ever played. What was the toughest environment? SEC or Clemson or anywhere else? I know you went to Stanford. I think your senior year for a Super
Stanford was quiet. That was the sunken diamond. I mean, I was like, are they people even coming out to the game?
West Coast field, baby.
Yeah, man.
Yep.
It was
A lot of stuff going on.
But South Carolina goes to a one of the better venues we talk about all the time. We say LSU and we say Mississippi State because they're Arkansas because they've been around the SEC. But Texas A&M is one of the best venues. I think it's Bluebell Park is what they call it. I think they've got a train out in left field, I believe. It's
right beside, in the shadows of Kyle Field there, the football stadium.
Yeah, really neat environment. But what do you remember going on the road to an environment like a Texas A&M? What's some of the ones you remember?
okay. Well, I mean, of course, I'll take it to my first time showing up at Mississippi State, right? And you show up and it almost looked like a junkyard in the back when we got there. It was like they were doing some construction work trying to upgrade the facility, but it was almost like, what are all these things they've had built in the outfield? And we're hitting BP, and it's like, it just didn't sit right because you're like not used to seeing that. And then you come in on Friday, you pull into the park, and the grill's fired up, smoke's on the field, and you're like, what in the world is going on? And then you see all these people. It's like there's more people out there than there are in the stands. And, I mean, they're just giving it to you. And that was, something I remember for sure. Of course, LSU, I think, we ended up not getting swept there on the third game. And I think I got beer poured on me. And, yeah, I mean, LSU's that place. It's just going to, they're going to intimidate you. They're just, crazy Cajuns out there. But, Florida wasn't that intimidating place. It just, was kind of a sleepy crowd. Georgia, the same way. My favorite memory of Georgia was, we got there, and it was always like, who's going to throw out the first pitch? Sometimes it was celebrity, and it was Goldberg threw out the first pitch at Georgia, and man, he threw it in there. It's probably it had to be 90 plus. I mean, he just let it rip. And I was impressed with that. And then, Vandy was different. It was weird because when in Vanderbilt at that time, I can't remember if it's still that way or not. If they have a new stadium, but it was the football field was right next to it.
It's connected to the football field.
Yeah, and so we hit a foul ball, and you're looking up, and it's like there's the football field, and it's pinging off the rail, and so it was an interesting place. But again, they weren't the Vandy they are today.
Right.
Tennessee was pretty good. They had a good crowd, but again, nothing. Some of the most intimidating games, were probably here at home because everybody got up for. I remember going to the Citadel, and the cadets would just wear you out. And you're like, man, this guy's just getting my head. And I actually had a buddy who was there, and he got in trouble because he was like supporting me, and so he tells me the story about when they were like, who was cheering for the Gamecock player, and he had to stand up in front of everybody. So that was pretty funny. But I mean, there's some intimidating, and we try to, create that. I think that's been somewhat of a challenge to get that back. Of late, we had that, and I remember in the postseason, especially here when at Sarge Fry, and we were taking infield, and the place is packed just for us taking infield, and when Marcus McBeth would get they'd hit it to him and throw it to third base or throw it home. I mean, he'd throw it on a rope, and you just hear everybody go, "Ooh!" It was really cool, right? And so,
but I think this was right before or right during Ray Tanner getting South Carolina to the College World Series for the first time. You got to remember, there's been a ton of success here, and it's easy to get used to that from the outside. And I think that's the environment. I mean, immediately at Founders Park, there's national championship trophies there. Right. And so anything other than that has been an adjustment, I think, for fans. And now I think they're almost reappreciating this year's baseball team after missing the NCAA tournament 2 of the last 3 years.
Yeah, and you got a new venue. We created the new stadium, got some more perks that come along with it. Maybe new fans that have come in, and so it's just different, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think in order to get the involvement from the fans as players, you got to do something to make them cheer about it. You can't just beg them to cheer fake.
Well, it's a slow game.
Yeah,
it's just. I mean, like you're right. If there's not something, otherwise it's very hard to kind of. I don't want to say hard to stay invested, but it's a different kind of sport in terms of energy and action continuously taking place.
And that's the worst thing you would want as a baseball player is a football crowd, because then every time you get out, you're really disappointed, right?
Absolutely.
And that doesn't make any sense from a baseball perspective. It's just a different deal. And A&M's crowd this weekend, by the way, I think will be as amped up as they could be because they're right on the cusp of being able to host from an RPI standpoint, and yet they're 3 games under 500 in the SEC. This series is equally big for them as it is for the Gamecocks, and probably even more so. This is icing on the cake for Carolina at this point in the season, whereas A&M has been towards the top of college baseball all year long.
Well, and I'll bring that up. The trip to Arkansas for the Gamecocks, because of how the weather played out and everything, and obviously South Carolina didn't get that hostile environment that you typically get at Baum Stadium.
Right.
They'll get it. I don't know what the weather forecast is for College Station, but they'll get it in College Station. That's a great environment out there and should make for again. I'm fascinated to see how this team handles it. It feels, and I'm becoming a little ashamed because I feel like John from a couple weeks ago when we asked him on that particular Thursday, they've beaten LSU, they've beaten Vanderbilt, and I think they just won those 2. We said, okay, you back in? He goes, no, they got to do it against Ole Miss. Well, they did it against Ole Miss, they did it against Missouri, and I feel like I'm still sitting here going, all right, well, if they can just do it this weekend, I really believe they're back, but I don't know if that's because now I've been kind of kind of biased towards seeing them lose the 10 straight SEC series dating that at one point.
I wonder if John would buy in if we won the College World Series. I'm wondering if he's still thinking.
Well, I don't know.
Love the shot. Well done. We're going to give a dramatic conclusion of the program, including final poll results, and maybe we can get a call from a former third base heckler over there at Sarge Fry. First pitch set for 7:15 tonight for Carolina and Texas A&M series opener. Logan Chapman on the mound for the Gamecocks, a righty on the mound for Texas A&M. They'll throw a lefty in game number 2 and a TBA in game 3 for the Aggies. As far as their starting pitcher, Trey Dyson just tweeting, the last 12 SEC games only, the Gamecocks plus 29 in run differential, while Texas A&M is minus 17. Carolina is 9-3 in those 12 games, and Texas A&M just 4-8. So clearly, Trey working very hard for you right now, and Jeffcoat, sir.
Yeah, he's got the numbers. That's the thing about Trey. He can break it down with the best of them. And so I think what he's pointing out, obviously important stat is, are you scoring runs? And, we've been a team that's proven to do that on certain occasions and score a lot. And I hope that's kind of what it is, we can do this weekend. Gamecock fans get excited, and, I think tuning in to them this weekend's a big deal. And I hope we sit here next Thursday and we just got a lot of great things to talk about. And I think these guys can make a run. I'm confident in that, and I feel like if pitching's there, I think pitching's a big key. We saw what that did for us on Sunday last week, and then some timely hitting. Those are the cliches, but I'm certainly think that if we can do those things, get excited for sure.
Jim would like to join the program on the Love Chevrolet phone lines at 803-404-6100. Jim, used to be a third base heckler there at the Sarge.
Yeah, back in the good old days, there was about a group of about 20 of us there, and Mike McGee hated us, and Ray Tanner thought we were just the best thing that could happen. And we actually was Mike McGee made sure that we didn't get out of line. He actually used to put a security guard down there by us to make sure we didn't get too inappropriate.
Smart move.
But Florida and Georgia and Tennessee, we sat right behind their dugout, the visitors' dugout. And they would lob balls. They would put right stuff on them and throw baseballs over the top of the dugout back at us, and water bottles, and it was just a lot of fun. I don't know. Ray Tanner thought it was great. I just thought I'd chime in and bring that up. So
thank you, Jim.
It makes for a fun environment.
Yeah, part of the mystique of the Sarge for sure.
Oh man, the third base hecklers, which I think most of them were professors, if I'm not mistaken. It's like I needed to take their class, But those were some of the funniest times, especially when you're in the opposing dugout and you're watching what these guys are saying, and just the reaction from the opposing team is hilarious.
You and Trey always offer great advice on how to heckle. Obviously, not a home game this weekend. So, what was the worst heckling you ever got?
Oh man, I got some bad ones. I think I was playing an independent ball in independent ball up in North Dakota, believe it or not, in the summer, of course, and I was at the St. Paul Saints, and if you look them up, they have owned by Mike Veck,
as
Bill
the
Murray.
dog that brings the balls out to the umpire. Right?
That's right, man. So it was.
They got after you, huh?
They got it. They got me.
Wanted to give you final poll results this morning. Frank's Discount Tire poll question: what's the strongest fashion statement in sports? The beard barely edging out the mustache today, much to Adam Hill's chagrin, I'm sure. 34% to 33%. More than 220 votes in. Hairstyle finishing in third at 25%. Tattoos in fourth at 8%. And Bill's alternate poll question today.
Best mustache, Raleigh Fingers, 43%, edging out Dale Earnhardt, Sr., 31%. Mike Ditka at 14%. Hulk Hogan just 12%.
Ditka.
Interesting. Want to give you a chance to win $1,000. Text the national keyword right now, CARD, to 95819. That's CARD, 95819. We'll text you back to confirm your entry. Data and messaging rates may apply. It's $4K a day. Brought to you by Griffin Pools and Spas. They make you feel good on 107.5 The Game. Jeffcoat and Jeffcoat, the place to go to find out more information about Bryon and what he does professionally. Thanks for listening.